The OnePlus 8 series has finally been released, offering great performance, a modern design, and so on. The standard OnePlus 8 comes in at $700, marking another price increase for OnePlus devices. But the trade-off is a OnePlus device that's better than ever. But at this point, the Pixel 4 is relatively inexpensive too. At only $500, the Google Pixel 4 boasts an incredible camera and stock Android at a pretty low price. But which phone is better, the OnePlus 8 or the Google Pixel 4? I put the two phones head to head to find out. If you like this video, please subscribe to the channel. It really helps support my work and I would appreciate that support. The overall design of the OnePlus 8 and the Pixel 4 is pretty different, but they're both good-looking phones. The OnePlus 8 offers an edge-to-edge display with a hole-punch cutout for the front-facing camera in the top left-hand corner, and it's a good look. OnePlus has also adopted the curved edges look, and while I do think it looks good, OnePlus's palm detection isn't the best, and I found that I accidentally controlled aspects of the software without wanting to on multiple occasions. The front of the Pixel 4 looks pretty different. The phone has a pretty large forehead and chin. And while the forehead does house some interesting tech, it means that the device looks a little dated in a world of huge screens. The back of the phones is pretty different too. The OnePlus 8 has a vertically aligned camera bump, while the Pixel 4 has a square camera bump in the top left-hand corner. Both look good, but I prefer the look of the back of the Pixel 4, especially when you take into consideration the matte white and orange finishes. That said, generally speaking, the OnePlus 8 is a more modern and better looking phone. That's thanks largely to the edge-to-edge look on the front of the device. In the hand, both phones feel great, but while I like large screens, I prefer the feel of smaller devices. In my opinion, the Pixel 4 feels better in the hand, both because of its size and because of the matte finish on the back. The display on these two phones is different too. The OnePlus 8 has a 6.55-inch display, while the Pixel 4's display sits in at only 5.7 inches. Both displays are OLED, both have a 1080p resolution, and both have a 90Hz refresh rate, though the refresh rate on the Pixel 4 only kicks up to 90Hz in certain situations. Generally speaking, the display on the OnePlus 8 is a little better, considering it's bigger, brighter, and can have a constant 90Hz refresh rate. Both the Pixel 4 and the OnePlus 8 offer good speakers, and they can both get pretty loud. Generally speaking, I found that the Pixel 4 speakers were a little more detailed, but again, both are good. Here's a quick comparison of the speaker quality on the two phones. Note that real-world audio will sound a little different, because of things like my microphone and the speakers or headphones that you're listening on. But at least you might be able to get an idea of the difference between the two phones' speakers. One of the biggest points of difference between the two phones is their performance. That's because of the fact that the OnePlus 8 offers the latest and greatest hardware under the hood, while the Pixel 4 is a little dated. On the OnePlus 8, you'll get a Qualcomm Snapdragon 865 processor, coupled with either 8GB or 12GB of RAM, and either 128GB or 256GB of storage. The Pixel 4, on the other hand, sits in with a Snapdragon 855 processor, along with 6GB of RAM and either 64 or 128GB of storage. In day-to-day use, both of these phones performed pretty well. They both loaded apps quickly and easily handled heavy multitasking, so for most users they'll both do the job. They also both handled mobile gaming very well. That said, it's clear that the OnePlus 8 is the better performer, and that becomes clear in benchmarks. In both Antutu and Geekbench 5, the OnePlus 8 seriously outperformed against the Pixel 4. So if you want the higher performing phone, then the OnePlus 8 is probably the way to go. Then there's the battery life, and the OnePlus 8 is the clear winner here too. The OnePlus 8 easily got me through a day of use, and sometimes even into the next day, while the Pixel 4 simply didn't last as long. I often found that I had to charge my Pixel 4 partway through the day, which is fine if you're at a desk or at home all the time, but not the best if you're on the go. This was confirmed in my battery test. The test involves streaming a 1080p YouTube video over Wi-Fi for 3 hours, and at the end of the test, the OnePlus 8 retained 76% of its battery, while the Pixel 4 only retains 66%. But the Pixel 4 is a little more versatile when it comes to charging. While the OnePlus 8 Pro has wireless charging, the standard OnePlus 8 does not. The Pixel 4, on the other hand, does offer the feature, which is a nice touch. The camera is another major difference between the two phones, but this time it's the Pixel 4 that pulls ahead. OnePlus has put a lot of work into improving the camera quality on its phones, but the OnePlus 8 still doesn't take photos as high quality as those on the Pixel 4. The OnePlus 8 has a triple lens camera, with one 48MP sensor, one 16MP ultra-wide sensor, and one 2MP macro sensor. The Pixel 4, on the other hand, has a dual sensor camera, with one 12.2 megapixel main sensor and one 16 megapixel telephoto lens. Both of these phones are missing features of some kind. The Pixel 4, for example, has a telephoto lens but no ultra-wide lens, and the OnePlus 8 has an ultra-wide lens but no telephoto lens. In well-lit environments, both phones are able to take some pretty excellent photos, but the Pixel 4 generally has more natural, deeper colors with more contrast. That's not to say that the photos on the OnePlus 8 look bad. On the contrary, they look pretty good. But the Pixel's photos are just better. Zoomed in photos are much better on the Pixel 4 too. The OnePlus 8 offers up to 10x digital zoom, and photos taken with that are grainy and lack detail. The Pixel 4 has 2x optical zoom and up to 8x digital zoom, but with Google's super res zoom feature, images are relatively detailed and clear. The Pixel pulls ahead even more in dark environments. While OnePlus's nightscape feature is decent, it has a hard time handling lights within those photos thanks to the fact that it seriously boosts exposure. The Pixel 4 is smart enough to avoid that, and as a result, captures relatively detailed shots. Combined with the astrophotography mode on the device, the Pixel 4 is simply the better low-light camera. The front-facing camera is pretty good on both of these phones, with the OnePlus 8 offering a 16 megapixel selfie camera and the Pixel 4 sitting in at 8 megapixels. Again, the Pixel 4 captures more natural shots with higher contrast, but the OnePlus 8 still takes decent selfies. Both of these two phones can capture video at 4K, but for some reason the Pixel 4's camera maxes out at 30 frames per second, while the OnePlus 8 can capture 4K footage at 60 frames. Generally speaking, both of these phones capture good photos, but in most use cases, the Pixel 4 is simply better. Photos are more detailed, more natural looking, and so on. So if the camera quality is important to you, then the Pixel 4 is probably the way to go. The software experience on these two phones is similar, but there are a few major differences. Both the OnePlus 8 and the Pixel 4 offer a clean and stripped-back experience. However, obviously the Pixel 4 has pure stock Android, while the OnePlus 8 has Oxygen OS. While many prefer software as close to stock as possible, others might prefer the optimizations and features that you can find on a OnePlus device. For example, Oxygen OS has OnePlus's Parallel Apps feature, which allows you to have two instances of the same app installed on your device and logged into different accounts. The device also has gaming optimizations and other features that some might prefer. You can find a more in-depth comparison of Oxygen OS and stock Android through the link in the description. The OnePlus 8 and Google Pixel 4 offer a few other special features that might put one ahead of the other for some people. For example, the OnePlus 8 has low-band 5G support, meaning that it'll be ready for the next-gen network when it's available in your area. The device also has an in-display fingerprint sensor, and while it's not the best out there, it works pretty well. On the Google side of things, the Pixel 4 doesn't have a fingerprint sensor, but it does have facial recognition that works relatively well. That's largely thanks to the fact that Google's Soli tech is built into the phone, which also enables air-based gestures for things like switching music. I don't imagine people will use the feature all that much, but for some it might seriously come in handy. So which phone is actually better? Well, ultimately the OnePlus 8 offers better performance, a bigger display, and arguably a more modern design too. But the fact is that the Google Pixel 4 is $200 cheaper than the OnePlus 8, and I think it represents better value for money, especially if you consider the better camera. If spending less makes an impact for you, you're still getting flagship quality with the Google Pixel 4. But if you have the extra cash to spend and want better performance and a larger display, go for the OnePlus 8. Thanks for watching, and again, please subscribe to this channel if you enjoyed the video. My name is Christian, and I'll see you next time. See ya.